So good morning, everyone. I'd like to welcome you to our very first full year annual review for the Hertfordshire and West Essex Integrated Care Board. Before I get going on the content proper, I just want to run through a few housekeeping points to help ensure the meeting runs smoothly and to time, and making sure that we are able to both listen to the speakers and also take questions in an appropriate way. We will be recording the meeting and it will be shared online for those who were unable to join this morning. If you would rather keep your camera turned off, please feel free to do so. We will have time for questions at the end, so if you do have a question about any of the topics being raised today, if possible, if you can hold it until the question session at the end, that would be great. If not, put it in the chat and we will try and ensure that it is dealt with appropriately. We have received some questions in advance, which we will start the question session rolling with, and after that everyone is very welcome to raise their virtual hand, assuming people are all comfortable with the technology by this stage. We're not able to present the annual accounts today, but we will present these at a meeting in public as soon as that is possible. And if you do find you're having any trouble with sound, please check your settings. Occasionally, people find that leaving and rejoining resets things for them. So with that, I will kick us off into the content proper for our annual review. So someone hopefully is going to put the slides back up for me. There we go. So the annual review is a really great opportunity to reflect on our first year as an integrated care board, and an opportunity to say a large number of thank yous to a large number of people. I'm pleased that we're going to be able to highlight some of the great work that has been going on across the ICB in this last year. But I think it's also fair to reflect on the fact it's been a really challenging year on many fronts. Not least, we made the transition as a statutory organisation from 3 CCGs into a single ICB. But the wider context, the cost of living pressures have been a real issue for patients and for our staff. The NHS and its key partners are still recovering from the impact of the COVID pandemic, but nonetheless are making progress on delivering core services, and in our case, clearly reducing waiting lists for patients is one element and one important element of that. We have already seen multiple episodes of industrial action in the NHS, and these continue for the current time. We will later on touch on some of the work that has been done to ensure that core services continue to run safely a little later on. So against this quite challenging backdrop, our staff, along with colleagues right the way across the integrated care system, have been working hard to transform services for patients, from cancer waiting lists to waiting times for ambulances to access to primary care. Wherever we're working, the focus has been very much on improving services for our population. None of this progress will be possible without the support of our patients, our partners and stakeholders, and the dedication of our staff. We are incredibly grateful to all and want to use today as a chance to say a very big thank you. In November last year, we set out our initial organisational objectives for the next 5 years. They're ambitious, but they allow us to focus on the things we really want to deliver and that we know are important. These are reducing inequality and increasing healthy life expectancy, ensuring every child has the best start in life, improving access to health and care services, increasing the number of local citizens taking steps to improve their own well-being, and doing this in a way that delivers a balanced financial position each year. So we've started the work to deliver these objectives against the backdrop of the COVID pandemic, its consequences, and the other factors that I've highlighted. As we now move into the autumn, we are once again turning our focus to seasonal vaccinations for flu and for COVID. The last COVID booster programme running locally concluded in February and delivered over 3.7 million vaccinations over 2 years. The whole COVID programme was truly a team effort involving GP practices, pharmacies, community and acute hospital trusts, districts, boroughs and county councils, the voluntary and community sector, and everyone who helped us spread the word about the importance of these life-saving vaccinations, all playing a really significant part in its success. We've also reduced already the number of people who've been waiting the longest time for non-urgent treatments, and the very small group of patients who had been waiting for treatment for above 2 years have now all been treated or offered the opportunity of treatment at an alternative hospital if they would prefer. We continue to work now incrementally through cohorts of patients who have been waiting long times, but less than those extreme long times. And despite the challenges of industrial action, are seeing signs of progress. And I'll come back to that a little bit more later. So moving on to performance improvements. I will again come back and highlight some individual projects that have had a real impact on patients and staff in a moment, but I just wanted to sort of again set out a sort of an overview to provide some context for that. So when we think about elective care, as I've said, we have been reducing the size of the waiting list and also reducing waiting times, for example, within adult community services. We have seen improvements in the percentage of people receiving faster cancer diagnosis over the last year, and this comes at a time when we have actually seen the number of referrals significantly grow. So it's a double achievement to have managed that improvement. And we've also seen improvements in the waiting times for cancer treatment after diagnosis. In primary care, we've seen higher volumes of primary care appointments being offered compared to pre-pandemic levels. Around about 70% of patients overall can be seen face-to-face in practice settings, and 46% of patients are being seen on the day that they contact surgeries. Mental health and learning disability, we've seen a month-on-month increase in the numbers of mental health patients who are able to receive their care locally without having to be transferred to providers outside the local area. And that is against the background, again, of higher levels of demand for acute mental health care. We've also seen higher numbers of people who have learning disabilities receiving their annual health check, which leads to planning for health improvement for them, their families and carers. And again, we are really proud of being able to exceed the national target in these challenging circumstances. Thinking about older people, working with our voluntary community faith social enterprise colleagues to support patients, we've reduced by 20% the number of people aged over 65 who are readmitted to hospital within 7 days of a discharge. Really important work to help maintain people to be as well as they can in their own homes or local communities. We are also meeting our targets to diagnose numbers of patients with dementia across West Essex and are improving month on month in Hertfordshire. In maternity care, all hospital trusts across the ICB area have successfully launched the new and enhanced smoke-free pregnancy service to support women who are smokers at this time of their lives. And in relation to emergency care, we have seen improvement in response times for ambulances responding to Category 2 calls. So these are serious calls where perhaps a stroke or a heart attack is suspected. And we've also seen a reduction in the numbers of hours that are being lost to what are called handover delays at hospitals where ambulances arrive, but the hospital is not immediately able to take the patient into the ED. So a lot of things going in the right direction, but still more to do. So moving on to making improvements a reality, our performance improvement work recognises that it takes many people from different organisations to work together on areas to actually bring improvements through. And in a little while, our chair, Paul Burstow, will expand a little more on where collaboration has made difference. But again, just sort of taking an overview and highlighting some of the areas of important work that we've been taking forwards with partners. We've been developing a consistent approach to addressing patient safety through shared learning, working with a range of partners, including medical examiners, local medical councils, and our patient safety partners, again, who you'll hear from later. Safeguarding is another really key area for us. Developing relationships across Herts and Essex with local authorities and the police means that we are aligning our priorities with the two counties' safeguarding boards. And for complex cases work, that can be shared with our 3 acute hospitals as well. In Essex, we participate in a 3 integrated care board approach with the other 2 ICBs serving the Essex population to resolve safeguarding, working in partnership with Healthy Hubs and others. Mental health is another area where we've seen significant numbers of patients seeking support and treatment. In Essex, we're working with NHS and local government partners across the whole county, including the unitary authorities in Southend and Thurrock, to monitor the quality of services and ensure shared learning takes place across the area. And there's also shared working going on across Herts and West Essex with local authority and health colleagues supporting people who have learning disabilities so they can live full and active lives. We were really delighted that when we held our staff event at the start of the summer, celebrating 75 years of the NHS and 1 year for the ICB, this was brought to a rousing conclusion by the Purple All-Stars Learning Disability Dance Group. Our Quality Improvement Network includes members from GP practices, hospitals, community and mental health services across both counties and both Health Watch organisations. And we're working together in this way to identify quality improvement priorities for future work. And last, but by no means least, our work on patient experience is supported by a single team for the whole ICB area. They liaise regularly with providers and make sure that responses to patients and their families are of the highest quality, but also look out for any common themes that emerge in order that those can be fed in to support future improvement of care pathways or policies. So focusing on some of our key achievements over this year, and this is, as always the case in reviews of this nature, just a selection of a wide range of things that we could have pulled out. But our focus has been and continues to be the health and well-being of our population. We're really pleased by some of the external recognition that our teams get for this work. And over the last year, some teams have been shortlisted for various awards, including our Population Health Management team being shortlisted for a digital award by the Health Service Journal. This was for work that underpinned the development of both our overall strategy and our urgent and emergency care strategy. It also helped us develop our integrated neighbourhood teams, which enable people to receive community-based health and care support, and so not have to visit hospitals when they don't need to. I would point out that the Population Health Management team don't usually dress like this, but I'm not sure in my own mind whether this is a good or a bad thing. Continuing with the award theme, our workforce team has developed an innovative app called Intern. This helps nurses who are recruited from around the world with pastoral support and signposts them towards resources and information relevant to their place of work. The app's been nominated for 2 awards and is now being taken forward for national development. Planning workforce capacity is another essential piece of work. I'm proud of the work that has been done to develop the ICS People Strategy, covering workforce planning, new ways of working, improving and supporting staff well-being, and also increasing our focus on education, talent and leadership development. This has included raising awareness of the very broad range of careers that health and care can offer, including careers in areas of allied healthcare professionals and pharmacy, and also using different routes like the Future Heroes event for young people. I particularly wanted to highlight the success we've seen of our inclusive career development programme in the last year. This has supported career development for dozens of Black, Asian and minority ethnic colleagues, and also for staff who have a disability, and is open right the way across the system to health and local government. I've really enjoyed attending the graduation ceremonies for different cohorts that have passed through this course, where I've had the privilege of hearing about people's experiences, including how they have gained more confidence through being on the programme, the difference it has made to their working life, and also for many, the opportunities for further career progression that have then opened up for them. Turning to another area, increasingly our work relies on digital innovation and digital services. Our digital transformation team, working closely with partners in health and local government, has made leaps in joining together care records in our area, and this has also enabled joining up of care records more broadly with key partners in both London and the East of England. Practically, this means that frontline staff, including those working in hospitals, community services, general practice, local hospices, mental health, and also adult social care, can now view a secure summary of information from each other's records in real time. Having the right information available at the right time makes it easier for staff to work together across services to streamline delivery and make better informed decisions about the individuals in their care. Feedback is already showing the shared care records approach is preventing delays, reducing repetition, saving time, and most importantly, improving safety. We've made great strides in wider collaborative working. When the ICB was established in July 2020, we also set up the Hertfordshire and West Essex Voluntary Community Faith and Social Enterprise Alliance. The ICB was heavily involved in the creation of this, and we're really proud to continue to support its work. We are also, we believe, the first and to date maybe the only ICB to formally have a VCFSE member as a full member of our board. Patient engagement has also been taken up to other levels this last year. Colleagues regularly attend public-facing older people's activity, learning and safety, or OPALS events, where we can raise awareness about wider health and care services and navigation towards different types of support that's available to maintain and sustain good quality of life. Patients are an integral part of our decision-making processes. At local practice level, participation groups, which bring the patient voice to individual practices, have evolved and grown over the year, in part thanks to our work with the Patients Association. More widely within the ICB, we have worked with patients to establish the Patient Engagement Forum. This is made up largely of local people who provide a means of connecting to their own patient and community networks. It aims to ensure patients' needs, experiences, and views of local health services are taken on board and feed into our board's decisions. We hope it will continue to grow and strengthen to ensure there is meaningful involvement and participation by people and communities in ICB projects and programmes. And one example is the recruitment of 3 patient representatives to the ICB Primary Care Board. The ICB has continued to make some great progress in its work to meet the National Patient Safety Strategy as well, including working with system partners to focus on the NHS England priorities that were updated in January. Last year, we recruited 2 patient safety partners, Meg Carter and Justin Jewett. They are patient and public voice members who work closely with the ICB to specifically support improvements in patient safety. Meg and Justin are involved in ICB and community patient and public involvement and engagement in different ways, and their expertise and knowledge is already making a huge difference through these roles. So a big thank you to both of them. Picking up now in slightly more detail some areas of particular focus, I want to start with urgent and emergency care. And most people will be all too aware of the pressures that urgent and emergency care colleagues face on a day-to-day basis. In the face of these rising demands and in the context of ongoing industrial action, we continue to focus considerable efforts on making sure that patients can receive a timely and appropriate response to their urgent needs. One example of this is our work in partnership with community providers and the East of England Ambulance Service Trust. We piloted last autumn a new approach that incorporated new ways of working. Rather than only the ambulance service, considering how they as a single trust could respond to calls, this new approach makes it possible for the rapid response services that are provided with and through other partners to also be considered either at the point a patient it rings 999 or in the course of the considerations that take place immediately afterwards involving ambulance and paramedic staff. This approach allows service providers to have prompt clinical conversations about the options and best course of action for individual patients. Examples include sending community services rapid response staff to patients who have fallen without serious injury to help them get up and check them over at home. This obviates the other consequences, which might well be having to wait a considerable time for an ambulance, which might then take you to hospital where you might wait again, only to have the same checks. Much better for patients to have this service promptly and in their own homes. Other patients receive a wide range of care through these approaches, including nursing care, provision of therapies, remote monitoring in the comfort of their own home, and this is supported by a range of professionals, including GPs, nurses, and therapists. It means that patients can be seen sooner by the right healthcare practitioner, rather than going to hospital as a default. And this saves not only time for patients waiting, but helps to reduce the pressure in our emergency departments and allow them to focus on the most acute and unwell patients who arrive there. This approach is being rolled out more widely in East of England, and we are hopeful that it will continue to positively impact on patients, but also reduce the pressures on staff. Thinking about primary care, as I mentioned earlier, demand for GP appointments remains higher than we saw pre-pandemic, and our practices work hard to accommodate as many telephone, virtual, and face-to-face appointments every day. In the last year, the average for percentage of those appointments delivered face-to-face was above 68% across the patch, rising in some months above 70%. Last year, we provided funding for thousands of more GP appointments to help meet the increased demand during that period. And we also funded 95 practices to upgrade their telephone systems to modern multi-channel systems, and so help reduce the waiting time for patients telephoning to have their calls answered. And we are already seeing good patient feedback on this. As part of the national NHS long-term plan, we have a need to make sure every patient is offered a digital-first access to primary care by the end of this current year. To meet this, we have funded an online consultation tool for every practice, which means patients have the option, if they want to contact their practice digitally. It's not only quick, it saves time having to phone or visit the practice, and can support a range of areas, including checking on test results, appointments or advice, requesting fit notes, or receiving copies of letters digitally. For patients who don't want or can't use the digital route, the traditional methods are still in place, but are hopefully being made smoother now the digital channels are there for those who do want to use them, and phone systems are being improved. To provide the right care at the right time, the number and the range of staff in general practice continues to increase, along with increased training. Reception staff are trained to help patients get to the right type of appointment for their needs. Sometimes this means people will be offered an appointment with a nurse, a paramedic, a pharmacist, a healthcare assistant, or a physiotherapist who works at the practice rather than a GP. This is to help all patients get the best advice and care in the shortest time. A larger multi-professional team means that GPs have more time to treat those with the most complex or chronic health needs. As part of our overall commitment to improving access in general practice, we commissioned Healthwatch Hertfordshire and Healthwatch Essex to survey parents of children and young people to help us understand their experiences of accessing general practice services. I was pleased to find that the vast majority of people found the appointments good, but there is clearly still work to do on waiting times on the telephone. We're already following up these actions, and as is clear, this was an area we were already working on and focusing on for improvement. And as we moved into this year, we now have colleagues who work with dentistry, optician services and community pharmacy in the ICB team under delegated arrangements from NHS England. We are pleased to welcome these members of staff as part of the broader ICB family and look forward to working even more closely with them to improve services for patients going forwards. Thinking now about planned care. As I highlighted previously, the ongoing periods of national strike action have impacted on some health services, particularly those that support planned or non-urgent care. And prior to the industrial action, were showing reasonably consistent recovery in terms of waiting times. That recovery continues, but is being impacted by the periods of strike action. We work closely with those colleagues providing services directly to minimise the impact on patients' well-being during these periods. There is meticulous preparation for these times, and that reduces, as far as possible, the need to reschedule planned activity. However, ongoing action will continue to impact on services and patients. In the run-up to and during periods of strike action, our messaging to the public remains consistent, that anyone who needs urgent medical care should still come forwards as normal, particularly where the care needs appear to be emergency or life-threatening, or where someone is seriously ill or injured. However, those who arrive and whose illness is not life or limb-threatening may experience very prolonged waits under these circumstances. We also stress that unless patients with booked appointments have been contacted, they should assume their appointments are still going ahead and attend as planned. We are grateful for the continuing support of patients and stakeholders during these periods. Thinking about other aspects of planned care, developing further diagnostic capacity across Hertfordshire and West Essex is critical to recovering and transforming our services. Examples of the work that have been going on include the successful targeted lung health check pilot programme, which aims to identify lung cancer at the earliest opportunity when it is most likely to be treatable, and we're working on a further rollout of this in the future. Our cytosponge service, this is a diagnostic test that identifies conditions in the esophagus or gullet, has been expanded at Eastern North Herts Trust and Princess Alexandra Trust, and a new service will open at West Herts Trust later this year. This will continue to evolve with a community-based pilot running into primary care network areas, again later this year. In terms of developing more diagnostic capacity, which is critical to recovering and transforming our services, we have seen the establishment of the expansion of the Community Diagnostic Centre at the QE2 Hospital in Welligarden City, offering services in radiology, cardiology and gastroenterology, and with extended opening hours into the evenings and weekends, making it easier for those who are unable to attend daytime appointments to undergo essential diagnostic tests in a timely way. We have also been awarded funding from NHS England to further develop new community diagnostic centres in Epping in West Essex, expanding the services in East Hertfordshire at Bishop Stortford, and also expanding services in South and West Herts through the St Albans and Hemel locations. Turning now to mental health. As in common with everywhere in the country, demand for mental health services has increased significantly since the start of the COVID pandemic. We are seeing conditions that are more acute and more complex than previously. which may necessitate longer treatment programs or lengths of stay for those who need inpatient care. And while our providers have been working to develop their services for people in crisis, our primary care networks have also been supporting their services to enable patients to receive care closer to home wherever possible. One example is the Stork Valley and Villages Primary Care Network, which have recently been shortlisted for an award for its innovative work supporting young people waiting for autism assessment. The Primary Care Network's Children and Young People Social Prescribing and Occupational Therapy team recognised that because of the pressures, that the children were waiting longer than had been the case pre-pandemic. So they enlisted the support of occupational therapists who would complete the in-depth referral forms that are required for patients waiting for assessment, and so help to reduce some of the delay waiting for appointments. And the great thing about this initiative is not only does it help get people, young children and young people seen more quickly, it also supports parents and carers by signposting them to vital services that can support young people while they are waiting for assessment or diagnosis, helping them get back into school and other social activities. Dementia is another area of considerable concern, particularly with our growing population of older people. I'm pleased that we have consistently met our targets for diagnosing dementia and kept services operational through the pandemic. We're now focusing on identifying and supporting more people in care homes and plan to use increase the number of people using talking therapies to support their mental health. Another excellent achievement is the improvement we've seen in the rate of annual health checks for people with learning disabilities. We are seeing more and more practices, GP practices, carrying these out, and this vital work helps to reduce some of the health inequality that people with learning disabilities face, and offer support to them, their families and carers to have the knowledge and information they need to get help and to stay well. Last year, almost 80% of people aged over 14 who are on the learning disability registers locally received an annual health check. This was an incredible achievement and exceeds the national target set for this work. So thank you for listening to this part of the presentation. I hope you'll agree that the ICB has achieved a considerable amount in 22-23, and we look forward to building on that in the coming year. I'm now going to hand over to our chair, Paul Burstow, who will talk a little bit more about the great examples of collaborative working that have been taking place across our system. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much, Jane, and thank you very much indeed for giving us some great insights into the fantastic work that's going on right across our ICS and within our ICB.
You're on mute, Paul.
I think that my mic says I'm not on mute, so that's really interesting. Can you hear me now? Good. Okay. Yes. So I was just saying that we're obviously very keen to talk a bit more about collaboration, but I'm also conscious that we want to have enough time at the end of this AGM for people to ask questions. So I'm probably going to skip over some of what I might have said, and instead we will show a short animation which will say a little bit about the priorities that we've set together for improving the health of our population through our integrated care partnership, and that in turn is informing the work of the ICB through our joint forward plan. But I think it's been really good to have such a clear setting out of so much of the work that we are doing with and for our communities, and with and in partnership with so many of our NHS and local government organisations. Mention's already been made of one of our guests today who will be speaking to us, and that's Claire Owens, and I will be introducing her very shortly to talk to us about the important contribution that volunteers make to the life and work of the NHS, and indeed the important role that we see that the community, voluntary, faith and social enterprise sector also plays increasingly in enabling us to deliver the right sorts of services to meet the needs of our population. So I'm going to now say run the video, and hopefully we will have an animation.
Healthy communities are happy communities. So many factors play a part in this. Our childhood, our education, where we live, our own health and well-being, job opportunities, relationships. There's a lot to look after. A big group of organisations across Hertfordshire and West Essex all play a part in creating communities where everyone can thrive. That's organisations like the NHS, councils, police, and the many groups and charities that serve the 1.6 million people that live in our area. Caring for people's well-being and supporting those who face the biggest challenges to living healthy, independent lives are at the heart of everything we do. We are working together across our area in a new way, as an integrated care partnership. This will help improve the way we support our residents, making services more joined up for everyone. By working together for a healthier future, we can achieve much more for our residents than we ever could alone. Supporting and caring for everyone, improving health and lives, creating a healthy future. So, how will we do this? Our 10-year strategy is shaped by the views and experiences of our residents and the people who work to support them. There's a lot to be done, so we focused on 6 priorities which will make the biggest difference to the people who need the most support. We'll work to give every child in the area the best start in life, the opportunity to be safe and well, and to reach their potential. We'll create safe and welcoming places to live, reduce the gap in health and life expectancy between our healthiest and least healthy residents. We'll support residents to be physically active, eat well, and help reduce harmful behaviours such as smoking, excess drinking, gambling, and taking drugs. We'll help our residents age well and support them to live the best and most independent lives possible. We'll support the people and their families living with lasting health problems or disabilities, so that they can take more control of their health and enjoy a good quality of life. We'll provide early help to support people to have good mental health, and where people have a severe mental illness, learning disability or autism, we'll provide better care and opportunities. Want to find out more and tell us what you think? You can read our strategy summary and get involved through our website. Because by working together, we can build a healthier future across Hertfordshire and West Essex.
Thank you. And I very much hope that animation alongside Jane's excellent presentation of what we are doing both collaboratively and as an ICB to drive things forward is helpful, and we look forward to some of the questions you may ask. So although I've now got a couple of slides that have come up that I was going to speak to, I think what I'm going to do in fact is ask that those slides are taken down so that I can introduce you to Claire Unwins, who is the chair of Stork Valley and Rural's patient group. And this is really an opportunity, I think, to both hear about and celebrate the work that our many volunteers do across the NHS and across primary care in particular. So over to you, Claire.
Thank you very much, Paul. What I'll do, guys, I'm in Northern Ireland where it's blowing a gale. Luckily, Lauren from the comms team recorded my talk yesterday because we were worried about Wi-Fi. So I'm just going to really talk very briefly, just for about 5 minutes. And Lauren will send out the 15-minute chat. If anybody's interested, they can listen to me waffle on and get back in touch, because I think the Q&A is really important. It's really amazing to be involved in the integrated care system work. I sat in our waiting room 8 years ago in Much Haddon practice, and an elderly gentleman asked me, did I want to get involved in the PPG? Didn't even know what that was. I was sitting there waiting for my flu jab because I have asthma. Here I am 8 years on, so inspired and empowered, sitting on the patient engagement forum with Justin, who's on this call, with others such as Alan, who works for or is involved with Heartwatch. It's so inspiring to know that the Integrated Care Board take us seriously as patient reps. We're not seen as shop stewards and critical friends. We are seen as really serious players and listeners up and down and across the system. So it's an amazing crossroads. And when I listened to what Jane spoke about this morning and watched the animation, I kind of have goosebumps because we're delivering that as volunteers. We've been doing it for years at, you know, whether it's in the post office, at church, sitting with, talking, have a cup of tea with somebody, all the way across and up and down the network. And what was lovely, Lauren posed me 5 questions, really to keep me on track because I'm Irish and I speak too much. But just to sum up how these roles do all come together, you know, we used to talk about PPGs. Nobody really understands what that acronym means. So we now call ourselves patient groups. The added value has been involved with people like the Patients Association, where we were able to be a task and finish team all over last year to come up with 5 or 6 really good workshops, which are now recorded and almost as material. It doesn't mean that every practice is going to get engaged. Out of our maybe 135 practices across the system, you know, at least 90 practice managers are willing for there to be a buddy system where they can maybe reset their patient groups, try and bring in more diversity, bring in younger people, hear those voices that just aren't heard. We all would admit that the preserve of the patient groups have tended to be retired, older, white people. That's just a fact. And it's so encouraging to see, even in our patient engagement forum, which I sit in the border in East Hart, so I'm right on the border with Essex. And I'm going to meet a lovely lady in Epping next week. She's from a different background to me, different lifestyle. So that's the key. How do we join those dots? And looking at from the patient engagement forum perspective, I know Paul's going to come to one of our meetings in a couple of weeks' time. We are a really diverse bunch of people. We shout, we argue, we even, you know, we couldn't agree how to be, even to chair it, but we're through our norming and our storming, and we're coming out into becoming a really professional voice where the Integrated Care Board can trust us, ask us to bring forward questions. They even allowed us to take strategies such as the IVS strategy and the urgent and emergency care strategy. We've asked our GPs to, you know, text our patients about their views and their experience of what it's like to have had emergency care in the last 12 months. That's really mind-boggling that we're able to do that in such a short period of time. My background is following the customer in Tesco. That's what I did for 20 years. And I'm now right in the heart of the NHS as a volunteer, following the patient. And people have been quite cynical about the reforms around integrated care systems and how it will join up. But if you actually look at the big picture, there is a massive gap between what patients kind of perceive and feel and understand and their satisfaction of their NHS. When you actually get under the bonnet and look at what's been achieved and is happening, and Jane really summed it up, even if it comes across as being sort of quite medical, from a volunteer's perspective, that is so empowering and inspiring because we can just get down and dirty and do this work. And if we could just go to the very last slide, Vanessa, just skip on. It's about 7 or 8 slides on. Keep going. One more. Yeah, just keep going right to the end. It's the one with the system, place, and neighbourhood slide. Yeah, keep going.
I think it's appeared on some screens. Just depends on how quickly it's getting to people.
Okay, so have you got the
It
one
is there.
Lovely. I just not come up on my slide. So what I love about that slide, I just had a go at writing down all the things that I'm involved in. I'm ridiculous. I've got time. I haven't got children at home. I haven't got a husband at home. I haven't got parents to look after. I'm a patient, but I have got a lot of time. So when you look at all those things that I'm involved on in some level, I'm just really a watchkeeper, you know, whether it's talking to the post office about vulnerable patients during COVID, or, you know, quietly getting involved in one of the pilots with the primary care network, or sitting as hopefully a listener and a contributor on our patient engagement forum. That's a really fantastic thing to be able to do as a volunteer. And all I really want to say today, there's 230 people on this call. Even if 10 of you are reticent about getting involved in volunteering in some capacity, just start with something that you're really passionate about. Just get involved. That's really, when I look at Justin and myself, I know Mark Edwards is on this call. I remember 7 years ago, you know, when we had our network meetings, and I walked into a little meeting with 5 other people from other patient groups. I was petrified. I didn't understand the language. But here I am, 8 years later, involved. I'm thriving. I'm hopefully buddying other practices to get involved. So that's all I really wanted to say. And thank you so much for listening today. Bye now.
Thank you very much indeed, Claire. And I can see lots of claps and other reactions to that. So thank you very much indeed. And as you say, there's the recording you've already made, which I'm sure people will want to see as well. I think that sort of power of the voice and lived experience of patients is something which really is very important to the way in which we do our business. And I think you've underscored why that matters and why it's an important part of the DNA of our system here in Hertfordshire and West Essex. Diversity, I think, is really important. You've stressed the need for us to become more diverse, to make sure that we are genuinely reflecting the needs of our population and genuinely therefore attacking those issues of health equity and inequality as well. And being a trusted critical friend is the way to have the greatest influence and impact. And I think that's really your main point. Thank you for the investment you're making of your time into this work. And I just want to underscore your last point. You know, please, anyone on this call who has any doubts about the value of volunteering, please do take heart from what Claire has had to say. Do get involved, find your passions, and I hope those passions are the ones we all share, which is for our NHS to be the greatest possible service it can be, and that does require volunteers as well as everything else. So thank you very much, Claire, for your presentation. We're now going to move on to an opportunity for some questions. We're going to start with some questions that were submitted in advance, and then we will certainly try to bring in some of those that have got their hands up. So I've already noted one colleague on this call who's got their hand up, and I will come to them as soon as I can. So I'm going to read out the questions we've had, and then Jane or a member of the team will endeavour to provide an answer to that question. So starting with the first question, which is from Dr. Philip Aylett, and it's a two-part question, which I will read out. It seems likely that all 3 acute trusts in the ICB area will end the year in deficit. How confident are you that the ICB will have the resources to break even in 23-24? If the Princess Alexandra and West Herts trusts end the year in deficit, isn't that likely to prove an obstacle to their submission of outline business cases for redevelopment? Jane.
Sorry, just taking myself off mute. Yes, thank you for the question. I think we, as hopefully my presentation outlined, we clearly recognise the current operational and financial pressures on the NHS, in particular on the acute sector locally, as is the case nationally. Again, this is very much in part flowing from both increased demand and the pressure of dealing with post-pandemic challenges. So we do recognise the impact that this is having on acute providers in particular. However, roughly half of the funds allocated to the Integrated Care Board are used on acute services, and the other half, by definition, are on other sectors, which are not all experiencing quite the same issues, certainly not quite the same financial pressures. So other areas of our budgeted spend are on track, or even in some cases slightly ahead. So from the ICB perspective as a whole, we are still on track to take our current plan forwards, albeit recognising the risks to delivery that have been highlighted. In terms of new hospital developments, the new hospitals programme, the national team overseeing this, have not indicated any concerns about progressing the 2 capital developments with the ICB. Indeed, locally, we recognise that the challenge of providing healthcare in facilities which are no longer really fit for purpose probably places additional operational and financial pressures on the providers, and that we are really keen, therefore, these plans progress rapidly so that patients and staff benefit from modern, fit-for-purpose healthcare environments.
Great, thank you very much, Jane. Our next question is from Kevin Miner, who is one of actually the two vice chairs of the patient engagement forum that Claire was talking about just now. So the question is, please share how the patient and public voice has impacted on decision making within the Hertfordshire and West Essex integrated care system.
So I think some of the answer to that is actually already been set out in the presentation. So I would be repeating, I think, Paul, some of that if we went back into it. But you know, and I think Claire's articulated it more clearly than perhaps I would be able to. But you know, the example that was included in my presentation of the work that we commissioned Healthwatch to do, for example, is, I think, a really important element of how we ensure that it's not just that we go and ask people who we think will give us the answer we want. We use independence and rigour to enhance our understanding of what we need to do differently.
Thank you very much, Jane. As I say, we'll refer people to the answer given earlier, I think is what we would say at that point. So there's a second question from Kevin, which is in two parts. What is the ICB's commitment to unpaid family carers for their identification and support in their caring role and for their own health and well-being? And does the ICB propose to implement integrated personalised commissioning, health, social care, VCFSE, and the patient and public voice?
So I will attempt to answer those, but if Tanya or Beverly are on, they might be able to enhance that. I mean, certainly in terms of our role as an employer, as an integrated care board, we take immense pains to identify and support unpaid and family carers who work for us, as well as the work we do across the system with Carers in Hearts and others to again identify and support those patients, those carers known to us in a range of different ways. And again, one small example would be the support that is offered through the vaccination programme for COVID to ensure that carers are supported to remain well as one element of that. In terms of the integrated personal commissioning, I would need to defer to Beverly on that, because that's in her portfolio, and I simply don't know the specifics of where we're at on that at the moment.
Okay, I'm just going to look to see if Beverly or Tanya are on the call and if they would like. Yes.
Excuse me, I am
Beverly.
here. Sorry, I have my camera off. So quite a lot of the work around implementing the kind of wider approach to personalisation links into the work that we're doing with primary care around the development of the integrated neighbourhood teams and the extending the workforce at a very local level to try and respond to local needs and try and become more person-centred in the way a number of those services are delivered. In doing that work, there's very strong engagement from a whole range of sectors and from particularly patient participation groups. I think there is always more we can do, and there's more that we can do at a strategic level in terms of how we develop some of our newer services and service changes to think about that kind of broad spectrum. But if you think back to some of the work we've done over the past years on the development of integrated wards and virtual wards and care at home, there's been really strong engagement from patients in terms of feedback and how we've amended services, and from the VCSE groups in terms of what they can offer and support in doing that work. So I think we're making progress. I think there is lots more we can continue to do as we move forward. Hope that helps.
Thank you very much, Beverly. Right. I think at that point then we might move on to the last of our pre-submitted questions. This is from Paul Lehman, and like all the other questions, a really important topic. In view of the Lucy Letby verdict, can the board, confirm that all board members have good track records of having followed the Nolan principles and that any previous roles have resulted in positive outcomes. If any member has previous poor performance, will this be a matter for consideration where the person may be asked to step down to allow another with no baggage and hence allowing new relationships? Now, Jane, maybe I should pick this up to start with as chair, because I have the responsibility under the rules for the fit and proper person test and attesting to the fact we've done the process fully and properly. And then if you'd like to add anything, but I think what I would like to say is certainly right from the establishment of the board, we have followed vigorously the process for determining whether members of the board are fit and proper persons. And as I said just now, NHS England has just issued some refreshed guidance to further strengthen that based on a review that was conducted a couple of years ago, which will be something the board will be discussing, in fact, later today, and will be part of our processes going on. And the Nolan principles are not just principles that board members need to be mindful of, they are principles that all members of staff within the NHS also need to take into account in the discharging of their roles. And certainly as chair, it's one of the things that I have a responsibility in safeguarding to ensure that. So certainly these things are very much in our minds as members of the board, and very much to the fore in our thinking when it comes to how we keep patients safe and make sure that we get good quality care delivered at the right time and at the right place. So I hope that helps provide some assurance on that one. There was one question from the floor already indicated by one of our people attending today. We've got 2 or 3 minutes before we need to conclude today's session. And I saw the hand's gone down now. Andrew Smith, I think you wanted to come in and ask a question. I don't know whether that's still the case. And maybe it isn't. Or maybe it's that you can't unmute. I don't know, but you're currently muted. Ah, there we go.
No, sorry, I accidentally hit the wrong button on the screen.
These things happen. Okay, thank you, Andrew. Are there any other questions people would like to ask at this stage of Jane or any of the team? If not, a rare gift that we can give to ourselves is a little bit of time. It's 27 minutes past 10. Can I thank Jane again for setting out so clearly the amazing amount of work that the ICB is doing in partnership with NHS and other organisations, and the work we're doing both within the ICB and across the ICS. Thank you all very much for your attendance at this meeting today. Hope you found it informative and interesting, and please do follow up if there's anything else that you want to find out about, and do check out Claire's excellent video as well. Thank you all very much. Have a good day.
Thank you. Thank you.